3 microphones on the snare drum, 2 on the top, 1 on the bottom, kick drum mics on the outside, on the inside, one of those subwoofer things, all that stuff. SHURE SM57s pretty much all around, and I got these in a pack and they work great. I've got them on both toms and on the snare drum. In the set, the SHURE set that it came with 3 of the SM57s and the Beta 52 for the kick. And the Beta 52 is not my favorite kick drum microphone, but this is a 16-inch bass drum here, and I've got it wide open because I like it really resonant. And the Beta 52 on such a small bass drum like this is nice because it really emphasizes the low end of it, and somehow makes the drum sound a little more full than say like a D112. The overheads, those are actually just, I don't even know what the model is, but they're just cheap XML pencil condenser mics, cardioid pencil condenser mics, that they actually came free with the set of the 57s and the Beta 52 as like a free gift. And it was a great deal. And honestly, when I saw that, I thought, oh, that's just gonna be garbage. And then I recorded with it and they sounded great. So much so that many of the overhead mics that I have kind of wanted for a long time, it's hard to justify really spending the money on it because they do the job. So that's what we've got there. The mic lines go into the floor snake over here, the Proco floor snake, the same way that we recorded the Ramona. I just unpatched the Ramona, patching in the drum set, and there's basically 6 microphones. We've got the kick drum on the front, snare drum on the top, mounted tom, floor tom, and 2 overheads. And that's all I like. I used to always put a hi-hat mic on there just because I felt like I needed to, but then it always got taken out. So I stopped micing up the hi-hat, and it works great. So 6 mics, I don't like less than that. I'm not really a big fan of like the just overheads or the Glenn Johns kind of thing with like 1 mic down here in this location to get the tom, the bass drum, and the snare drum, and then one overhead. That's not enough, but for what I like to hear out of the drums. But then again, I don't need 1,000 mics either. So this is what we have. We're about to track the drums now, but just before I track out the drums, we'll go through here. I've added in 4 mono tracks for the kick, snare, mounted tom, floor tom, and then a stereo track for the overheads. The way that I want to do it is to maybe just expand our arrangement a little bit with what we already have, and the idea would be to take the sequences that we have made and repeat those a few more times with leaving a lot of space. The space in between is where we're gonna use the drum audio to generate some MIDI parts that we can then further use to build the arrangement. All right, so what I think I'm gonna do is to select all, and A, and then we're going to bring this back to, let's say, bar 9. So that'll give us an 8-bar intro, and then we'll come in really sparse with the organ and the Rhodes. With an 8-bar intro, that's going to be a little long. That's longer than what I want the piece to be, 10 minutes. But what I would like to have happen again would be this part here, where it has this melodic theme that's kind of in the open. I think in this section here, it's coming up, what I would want to do would basically be to make a bridge. So we'd have kind of a bridge section here that would be a contrasting section to these others. So if we kind of look at the arrangement here, we have 3 of the piano sequenced parts, first 2 on the front half, and then 1 on the back half. So it kind of makes it like an AABA form. And we can kind of change up our arrangement with the different parts as we go. But this will give me something to play to on the drums. In fact, what I think I want to do here would be to, in this modular section here, we're going to cut this part out. And then take all of this and that will kind of further reinforce our AABA form. We'll try to make this a common tone for pivoting back to the harmony here. So what we should probably do is in this Rhodes part, take as much of the harmony out so that we can just have this one B natural. And we have a B natural in the Rhodes, and we have a C in the organ part. Or if you're thinking of it in another way, like B, D, F, A, C, B, D, 3rd, F, 5th, A, the 7th, B, D, F, A, then C, the 9th. So yeah, I think that should be good. I think that'll give us enough space there to move away from that B Locrian sound. I might try to stay in B Locrian, but just maybe imply some other mode in that section, but still within, like, you know, so you could go like to Aeolian, something like that. I don't know. We'll see. See what happens there. Okay? All right. I'm going to track the drums. So I think that's a pretty good take. I think I'm just going to do one and done on that one. I feel pretty good about it. The only reason I might do a second take would be I could kind of hear it going in a different direction, more like a ballad kind of thing, like brushes and maybe going back and forth between sticks and brushes, like a down section with brushes. But for right now, just to keep going with it and see what happens, I think I'm going to leave it at that. So what I want to do here with the drums, if we look in the window, basically it goes like this. You can hear that really resonant kick drum. That's just a 16-inch kick drum, 16 inches in diameter, 14 inches, and it's wide open with basically coated ambassadors. That's why I like the Beta 52, because the Beta 52 kind of makes it feel a little warmer, because like a small drum like that can be kind of harsh, but it's tuned low, and the Beta 52 helps with that too. All right, so we'll take the snare, we'll leave the kick right in the middle, we'll take the snare drum and we'll pan that a little to the left, and then we'll take our mounted tom and we'll pan that far to the left. We're kind of thinking drummer's perspective on it. We'll take our floor tom and pan that far to the right, and we'll leave our overheads there as they are. And just listen again. You can kind of hear how much the overheads are doing so far as the overall drum picture. If we mute the snare drum, we still have a lot of snare drum in there. And the snare in. So we're going to take the snare part proper, and we're just going to pull that down maybe 6 dB. And I think we'll just pull the overheads down a bit too, maybe 3 dB for now. Let's solo up the snare drum part, and I'd like to send some of this to a little bit of reverb. And the reverb also, because the snare drum is so prominent, the reverb will kind of push that a little more back in the overall sonic picture, if you will. And it'll also kind of soften it a little more as well. So let's send a little of the snare drum, the reverb here. Let's see how much we've got. We go crazy with it. And the reverb we have here is the studio, is the Reverence again. And we've just got this EQ before it, large Viennese Hall. Pay no attention to that. That's just the CIA messing with my speakers. And so we will then go to Tom 1, and we will add that same reverb here, just to make it all sound like it's in the same space. And we'll put a little more reverb on the tom, the mounted tom, than we did on the snare drum. So the snare drum will have a little bit less, and the mounted tom a little bit more, the most of what we're going to do here. And then the floor tom, we'll add that, we'll add some reverb to that as well, but not very much, just a little. And like I said, pay no attention to all that noise that's in the speakers. That's the CIA. I don't know. Tell me. That's how they do. There's the overheads. And the overheads, we're going to pull that back a little bit more. 6, 8 dB even. Because they're up there. And we'll add just a little of the reverb to that. Now the other thing that I want to do is to go into the kick drum here, and we're going to go to our EQ. We're going to put frequency. That's the one I like. Let's make it sharper. Let's go to 48. Go up here and any of the high, actually we can probably pull this down a good bit here. I'm just taking some of the overheads out of the kick drum there. And then we'll also come in here at 350 and take a little bit of a notch out there. And that'll just take a little bit more of the boxiness out of it. So if we bypass our EQ here, and then in. Roll this down a little more. All right, and on the snare drum, also put frequency. Here though, we're gonna high pass a little higher. So we'll come here to make that a little softer. Here just the snare drum part. We can bring that up a little bit higher. It's a low, that snare drum is a very low pitched snare drum, and it's very full body. It's the Gretsch 6.5 by 14 with the double lugs, and it's really got a lot of meat to it. So I don't want to high pass too, go up too high there. And on the top end, it's nicer for it to be a little bit more gentle on the slope. and we'll do definitely our 350 cut or thereabouts here. Dip, just a few dB. And that'll definitely help take out some of the boxiness in the drum and make it kind of sound more like it actually does in the room. And our tom, first tom. And it's like, honestly, this frequency EQ that's by Steinberg that just comes with Cubase and Nuendo, it's so great. And it's like, I mean, it's really the kind of thing that, like, I've kind of talked a lot about getting rid of all this stuff and just going with plugins and everything in the box. And I want to do that. I mean, if you're going to record a drum set, you got to have some stuff. And if you're going to have some stuff, you could have a little more. But in addition to this idea of like scaling everything down to just the essentials, plugins are another one of those areas, because honestly, with a DAW like Cubase, Nuendo, or like Ableton or Logic, I mean, they come with so much stuff, and all of this talk out there that like the plugins that come with it are like are somehow inferior. I don't buy any of that. Like, they're really good. And I read this interview with this techno guy, Tommy47, and he makes some of the coolest music, and I was amazed that like everything that he uses is just in Logic. And he purposefully in the interview, he was like, I don't want any of those Waves plugins or all those other things. I kind of like that it's just all like right there in that one package of Logic. And I kind of feel the same way about that too. It's like, you know, if you can't make it work with whatever is in there, like just buying more stuff is not gonna make it any better. Buying more plugins and this and that. Anyway, I could go on about that topic. So the mounted tom, we're going to cut that a little bit higher. You can see where it's got like the body of the resonance is right here around 135 hertz. So we don't want to go too high with it, but all that stuff that's down below that, it's not really helping anything. And then you see all this stuff up here above it is really just more of the cymbals and things that are coming in from the overheads or coming in from the cymbals. So we don't need a whole lot of that. Now you might be saying like, well, if you're doing all that and you're trying to get the cymbals out of the toms and the cymbals out of the bass drum and this and that, like, why not put a gate on there? And the gates are okay if it's like a rock thing that's like really slamming and you want to like have the drums really isolated and have it that way. Then the noise gates, I could go with that. But for this kind of thing, it's like I actually like for it all, like I don't go in and chop out like if I'm not playing the tom for a while, I don't go in and chop out everything up until where I just play a tom, because all that other stuff, like to my ear, makes it sound more like the drums in the room when you hear it. And if you start to go in there and make it all sound, you know, like everything is isolated and compacted and like entire tom track is like complete dead silence up until when the tom comes in, like that's cool for a certain kind of music if that's like the style that you're going for, but that's not what I'm going for here. I really want the drums to just sound very organic and natural and sound basically like they do in the room. And if you chop all that other stuff out, it somehow loses, I don't know, it loses something. So like what I don't want to do with the tom would be to like pull it way down here in an effort to try to get all of that other stuff out. I just want to push the other stuff back a little bit because we do have enough of it, but I want it to be there. All right, and then our floor tom down here. Let's find a spot where we're we'll do the same kind of thing. And just one more thing on that plugin business is like, you know, I feel I feel like, I mean, because the plugins that come in like, say, Cubase or Nuendo or Ableton or Logic, because they're all so good, it's like, for me, like if I'm going to go with other plugins, like if I'm going to buy extra plugins from a third-party plugin manufacturer, then if they put some kind of thing on there that makes you have to jump through hurdles for the registration and it's intrusive into your workflow, then most certainly those would be the plugins that I don't want. Like, I don't want those. Because honestly, I could just use the plugins in Nuendo, all of them, and just go with that. And while I like, say, other plugins, I'm super happy to have my Brainworks plugins and the Plugin Alliance plugins. I like those. But if they had some kind of nasty, archaic way of like beating the customer over the head with their registration and authorization and all that stuff, I would, with those too, I would just be like, you know what? I don't need those. I don't need those plugins. But because they do have a very reasonable and well thought out system, I love using those plugins. And yeah, I'm talking to you, Universal Audio. Like, I don't need that. Don't need it. So the floor tom, we'll cut that a little higher than we had the bass drum. The bass drum, we left that way down there at 32 hertz. The floor tom is pretty low, but I mean 50 hertz, that's plenty. And we'll do the same thing on the top end there. And we'll take out a little of that boxy resonance. This. Yeah, all right. And our overheads then, same kind of business. Here, frequency. Steinberg, you came up with a winner on this frequency EQ. Super nice. And for the overheads, we will cut the overheads at 32 hertz to leave whatever bass drum is coming in. And on the top end, we'll just bring this down a little, just to take out any of the kind of nastiness in the top end of the cymbals there. Just like that, and see what this for this. All right, let's listen to all the drums together now. Hear that part again where it's a little more easy. All right, so let's look down here at our drum bus. Now I could have just done one EQ move on the drum bus, but then I would have needed to just leave the 32 on the low end and somewhere up pretty high on the high end. And I would rather be able to shape it a little more than that, so that's why we're doing that. But then on the drum bus, we already have another instance of the frequency doing that 32, and same stuff there. And then with that, we put our tape machine on there that brought our process of working in the session to a stop, thanks to the way UAD, Universal Audio, seems to want to do their plugins. And we've got our Townhouse, which is basically an SSL style compressor. Now that we have our acoustic drums going to this same bus, let's see how that compressor is working. Yeah, it's a little much. That's where we're hearing that you're hearing some of the compressor working a little bit too hard. So let's back that down a little bit. Even more. Just want a couple of dB. And so if we really had to, with the electronic drums, because the dynamic range of the electronic drums are just naturally going to be very much more compact compared to the dynamic range of the acoustic drums, especially played this way. If we really wanted to, we could break those two things out and have a bus just for the electronic drums and then a bus for the acoustic drums. But honestly, I don't even really need the compressor on the electronic drums. I do like to have it on the acoustic drums. I feel like that makes a lot more sense. So if we set the compressor working nicely for the acoustic drums, the electronic drums will be fine. So. We're getting a lot of level. I mean, I do love this plugin. It's super nice. All their plugins are really nice. Like I said, I was very happy to be able to purchase them. But that business with the anyway. All right, I think that about does it for this one. I kind of don't want these videos to get too long. 30 minutes is like an eternity in YouTube time. So I think we'll call it there. But join me in the next one where we're going to take the audio drum recording parts and we'll convert those to MIDI in Cubase, Nuendo. It's the same in both. Then we'll use those MIDI parts to generate other parts for the modular synth and maybe some virtual instruments. Okay, so if you found this content useful, consider joining me over at my Patreon. Your support there is most appreciated and helps me to continue making this content. But more so than that, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell for notification. It really helps the channel. All right, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.